Jungkook lost control and yelled, then whispered something to Jimin that made everyone tear up. Jungkook's sudden outburst shocks everyone, until his quiet confession to Jimin reveals a hidden truth that changes everything forever. "Stop pretending you understand me." The words tore through the rehearsal hall like shattered glass, echoing off the high ceilings and leaving a stunned silence in their wake. Everyone froze, staff members mid-step, cameras still rolling, the air itself seeming to tighten. Jungkook stood at the center of it all, chest heaving, eyes blazing with something raw and unfiltered. The fluorescent lights above cast harsh shadows across his face, highlighting the tremor in his jaw, the way his hands curled into fists as if he were holding himself together by force alone. Jimin didn't move. He stood just a few feet away, his expression unreadable at first glance, but his eyes were searching, steady, almost unbearably calm in contrast to the storm unraveling in front of him. "What do you think you see?" Jungkook's voice cracked, louder now, sharper. "You think you know what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling just because you've been there. You haven't. You weren't there." A murmur rippled through the room, quickly stifled. No one dared to intervene. The cameras should have cut by now. They didn't. Jungkook's breathing grew uneven, his shoulders rising and falling as if each breath cost him something. There was something deeper beneath the anger, something fragile, threatening to break through. Jimin finally took a step forward. It was slow, deliberate, the kind of movement that demanded attention without raising its voice. "Then tell me," he said quietly. The simplicity of it seemed to hit Jungkook harder than any argument. "Tell me what I missed." For a moment, Jungkook just stared at him, as if the words themselves were a challenge he didn't know how to meet. His anger faltered, flickering like a flame caught in the wind. The room felt smaller, tighter, every eye locked on the two of them. "You wouldn't get it," Jungkook muttered, but there was less conviction now. His voice dipped, almost uncertain. Jimin didn't retreat. "Try me." The tension shifted. It was no longer explosive, no longer loud. It became something heavier, something that pressed down on the chest and made breathing difficult. Jungkook looked away first, running a hand through his hair in frustration, packing a few steps before stopping again. "I was alone," he said suddenly. The words were quiet, almost lost in the vast space of the room. Jimin's gaze softened, but he didn't interrupt. "When everything got too loud, when everyone expected me to be okay, I was." Jungkook let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "But I didn't say anything, because that's what I'm supposed to do, right? Keep going, smile, be strong." He looked back at Jimin then, and for the first time there was no anger left, just something painfully honest. "And you," Jungkook hesitated, his voice tightening again, "you looked at me like you already knew, like I didn't have to say it, but you were wrong." The words hung in the air. Jimin's lips parted slightly, but no sound came out at first. His composure wavered, just enough to reveal the impact of what he was hearing. "I wasn't trying to assume," he said finally, his voice softer than before. "I just didn't want you to feel like you had to carry it alone." Jungkook's expression shifted. Confusion, frustration, something else tangled beneath it. "Then why didn't you ask?" he shot back, though the sharpness had dulled. "Why didn't you just ask me what was wrong?" Jimin blinked, caught off guard. "I thought," he exhaled slowly, choosing his words with care. "I thought if I pushed, you'd shut me out." A faint, almost invisible crack appeared in Jungkook's defenses. The silence stretched again, but it was different now. Less suffocating, more fragile, like something delicate had been placed between them and neither of them knew how to touch it without breaking it. Jungkook's shoulders sagged slightly, the fight draining out of him all at once. He looked tired, not just physically, but in a way that ran deeper, like he'd been holding something in for far too long. "I didn't want to shut you out," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I just didn't know how to let you in." Jimin's breath caught. There it was. Not anger, not accusation. Just truth. Slowly, carefully, Jimin closed the distance between them until they were standing close enough that the tension between them felt almost tangible. The rest of the room faded into the background, the cameras, the staff. None of it mattered in that moment. "You don't have to figure it out all at once," Jimin said, his voice gentle but steady. "You just have to start." Jungkook looked at him, really looked this time, as if seeing something he hadn't allowed himself to see before. His eyes softened, the storm inside them quieting into something else, something vulnerable, something real. For a second, it seemed like he might say something more. Instead, he took a step closer. Close enough that only Jimin could hear what came next. His voice dropped, breaking, fragile in a way no one in that room had ever witnessed before. "I was scared you'd see me differently," Jungkook whispered. The words were soft, but they carried a weight that shifted everything. Jimin's expression changed instantly, the realization hitting him like a wave. All the unspoken moments, the missed signals, the quiet distances, they suddenly made sense. "Jungkook," he started, but his voice faltered. Jungkook shook his head slightly, as if he needed to say this before he lost the courage. "I didn't want to be weak in front of you," he continued, his voice trembling despite his effort to steady it. "Because you matter too much." Something in Jimin's chest tightened painfully. Around them, the room had gone completely still. No one moved, no one spoke. It was as if the entire world had paused, holding its breath for something it didn't fully understand but could feel. Jimin reached out, hesitating only for a fraction of a second before placing his hand gently on Jungkook's arm. "You were never weak," he said softly. "Not to me." Jungkook's eyes flickered, something breaking open in them at those words. "And you never had to hide," Jimin added, his voice barely above a whisper now. "Not from me." The distance between them disappeared completely in that moment, not physically, but in a way that mattered more. Jungkook let out a shaky breath, his tension finally unraveling. The anger, the frustration, the fear, it all seemed to dissolve, leaving behind something quieter, something heavier, but also lighter. For the first time since the outburst, his expression softened completely. And somewhere in the stillness of that room, more than one person wiped away silent tears, witnessing something far more powerful than the performance they had come to capture. Because this wasn't scripted. This was real. And it changed everything. The silence didn't last. It shattered the moment the director's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Cut! Cut! What the hell was that?" The spell broke instantly. Staff members rushed forward, voices overlapping, the soft hum of whispers turning into a chaotic storm. Someone turned off one of the cameras, but another kept rolling, its red light blinking like a witness that refused to look away. Jungkook stepped back abruptly, as if realizing for the first time that they weren't alone. His expression tightened, the vulnerability from seconds ago snapping shut behind a carefully rebuilt wall. Jimin noticed it immediately. "Jungkook." "I'm fine," Jungkook interrupted, too quickly, too sharply. He dragged a hand down his face, exhaling hard. "It's nothing." "Nothing." The word landed wrong. Jimin's jaw tensed. Just moments ago, Jungkook had laid everything bare, his voice breaking with fear and honesty, and now he was retreating, burying it like it never happened. The director approached, clearly frustrated, his footsteps echoing with authority. "We're on a tight schedule, and whatever that was," he gestured vaguely between them, "that wasn't in the script." "It wasn't supposed to be," Jungkook muttered under his breath. "What was that?" the director snapped. Jungkook looked up, his eyes cold now, guarded. "I said it wasn't supposed to be." The tension spiked again, sharper this time, edged with something dangerous. Jimin stepped in before it escalated further. "We just need a break," he said calmly, though his voice carried a firmness that didn't invite argument. "Give us 10 minutes." The director hesitated, clearly unhappy, but something in Jimin's gaze made him pause. With a frustrated sigh, he waved a hand. 10 minutes, then we reset, and this time we stick to the script." As the crew dispersed, the noise faded into the background again, but the tension between Jungkook and Jimin only grew heavier. Jungkook turned away first, packing toward the far side of the room. His movements were restless, agitated, like he couldn't stay still inside his own skin. Jimin followed. "You can't just pretend that didn't happen," he said, his voice lower now, but no less intense. Jungkook stopped, but he didn't turn around. "Watch me." The words were quiet, but they carried a sharp edge. Jimin exhaled slowly, trying to keep his composure. "You said you were scared I'd see you differently," he continued. "And now you're acting like none of it mattered." Jungkook let out a dry laugh, shaking his head. "Of course it mattered." "Then why are you shutting me out again?" That hit. Jungkook turned sharply this time, his eyes flashing. "Because we're not alone, Jimin," he snapped, his voice rising again. "Because everything we say, everything we do," he gestured around the room, his frustration spilling over. "It's all being watched, judged, twisted into something else." Jimin didn't flinch. "So what? That means you just bury it, pretend you're okay when you're not." "That's exactly what it means," Jungkook shot back. "That's what we've always done." The words echoed, heavier than either of them expected. Jimin's expression hardened slightly, something deeper surfacing beneath his calm exterior. "No," he said quietly. "That's what you've been doing." Jungkook froze. For a split second, something like hurt flickered across his face, quickly replaced by anger. "You don't get to say that," he snapped. "I do," Jimin replied, his voice steady but firm. "Because I've been trying to reach you and you keep pushing me away." "I wasn't pushing you away," Jungkook insisted, but there was hesitation now, a crack in his certainty. Jimin took a step closer. "Then what were you doing?" Jungkook opened his mouth, then closed it again. The answer didn't come easily. His silence said enough. Jimin's voice softened, but the intensity didn't fade. "You said you didn't want to be weak in front of me," he continued. "But what you don't understand is, shutting me out like this, that's what hurts." Jungkook's gaze wavered. For the first time, he didn't have a defense ready. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," he said quietly. "I know," Jimin replied, "but you did." The words hung between them, heavy and undeniable. Jungkook looked down, his hands curling into fists again, though this time it wasn't out of anger. It was something closer to frustration with himself. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted, his voice rough. "I don't know how to just open up without feeling like I'm losing control." Jimin's expression softened again, the tension in his shoulders easing just slightly. "You don't have to have it all figured out," he said. "You just have to stop running from it." Jungkook let out a shaky breath, running a hand through his hair again. "And what if I can't?" Jimin didn't hesitate. "Then I'll stay until you can." The words landed differently this time, not as a challenge, not as pressure, but as something steady, something grounding. Jungkook looked up at him slowly. There was something in his eyes now, something fragile, something uncertain, but also something that hadn't been there before. Hope. Before he could respond, a voice cut through the moment. "Wow, this is better than the script." Both of them turned sharply. One of the staff members stood a few feet away, holding a phone, recording. Jungkook's expression darkened instantly. "Are you serious right now?" he snapped, stepping forward. "Turn that off." The staff member hesitated, clearly caught off guard. I was just..." "Turn it off." The tension in Jungkook's voice was unmistakable. The phone lowered immediately. But the damage was done. Jungkook ran a hand over his face again, his frustration boiling over. "This is exactly what I meant," he muttered, packing again. "Nothing stays private, nothing." Jimin's expression tightened. "We'll handle it," he said, though there was a hint of concern in his voice now. Jungkook shook his head. "No, you don't get it. Once it's out there, it doesn't matter what the truth is anymore. People will see what they want to see." "And what do you think they'll see?" Jimin asked. Jungkook stopped. The question lingered. Slowly, he looked back at Jimin, his expression unreadable. "Something we're not ready to explain." Jimin held his gaze, searching for something deeper beneath the words. "And are we?" he asked quietly. Jungkook didn't answer. Because for the first time, he wasn't sure. No. The word came out before Jungkook could stop it. It was quiet, but it cut through everything. Jimin didn't look surprised. He studied Jungkook for a long moment, as if weighing something unseen, something heavier than the conversation itself. Around them, the rehearsal space had grown louder again, staff whispering, footsteps moving, the world slowly resuming. But it all felt distant, muffled, like they were standing inside a separate reality. "You're not ready," Jimin repeated, softer this time, but there was no accusation in his tone. Jungkook shook his head, running both hands through his hair, gripping it at the roots as if trying to steady himself. "No," he said again, more strained now. "I'm not." Jimin exhaled slowly, nodding once. "Then don't force it." That should have made things easier. It didn't. Jungkook let out a frustrated laugh, packing again, faster this time. "You say that like it's simple," he muttered. "Like I can just choose when things matter and when they don't." Jimin's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's not what I said." "It's what it sounds like," Jungkook snapped, stopping abruptly. His chest rose and fell unevenly, his emotions dangerously close to spilling over again. "Everything is already out of control, Jimin. You think giving it more time is going to fix that?" Jimin stepped closer, his voice firm now. "Rushing it won't fix it either." The tension surged again, electric, unstable. Jungkook stared at him, something restless flickering behind his eyes. "You don't get it," he said, his voice low but intense. "It's not just about me." "Then what is it about?" Jungkook hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Jimin's expression shifted, something sharper emerging beneath the calm. "Is it about them?" he asked, glancing briefly toward the staff. "Or is it about what they might say?" Jungkook clenched his jaw. "Answer me," Jimin pressed, his voice rising just slightly, not loud but insistent. "It's about everything," Jungkook shot back, the words breaking free all at once. "It's about the cameras, the fans, the expectations, about the fact that nothing we do is ever just ours." His voice echoed again, drawing attention despite their attempt to keep things contained. "And you think I don't know that?" Jimin replied, his composure cracking for the first time. There was heat in his voice now, something raw and unfiltered. "You think I haven't felt that pressure too?" Jungkook faltered for a split second. But only for a second. "Then why are you acting like it doesn't matter?" he challenged. "I'm not," Jimin said sharply. "I'm saying it shouldn't control everything." Jungkook laughed again, but there was no humor in it. "That's easy for you to say." Something in Jimin's expression hardened instantly. "Easy," he repeated, his voice dropping dangerously low. Jungkook realized too late. But the words had already landed. "You think this is easy for me," Jimin continued, stepping closer, his eyes locked onto Jungkook, with an intensity that made it impossible to look away. "You think watching you struggle and not knowing how to help you is easy. You think pretending like everything's fine when it's not is easy." Jungkook's breath caught. "I've been standing right here," Jimin went on, his voice shaking slightly now, though he didn't back down. "Waiting for you to let me in, and every time you almost do, you pull away like I'm the problem." "I never said you were the problem," Jungkook argued, but his voice had lost its edge. "You didn't have to," Jimin replied. "You made it feel that way." Silence. Heavy, crushing. Jungkook looked at him, really looked this time, and something shifted in his expression, something that resembled regret. "I didn't mean to," he said quietly. Jimin swallowed, the tension in his shoulders easing just slightly. "I know," he said, "but that doesn't make it hurt less." The honesty in his voice hit harder than any accusation. Jungkook looked away, his defenses crumbling again, piece by piece. "I don't know how to do this without messing it up," he admitted. "Every time I try, it feels like I'm just making things worse." Jimin's gaze softened, but there was still something unresolved lingering beneath it. "You're not the only one trying," he said. Jungkook nodded slowly, his hands falling to his sides. "I know." Another pause stretched between them, quieter this time, but no less significant. Then Jungkook spoke again, his voice lower, more uncertain. What if this changes everything? Jimin didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took another step closer, close enough that the space between them felt almost non-existent again. It already has, he said finally. Jungkook's eyes flickered. That wasn't the answer he expected. Jimin held his gaze, unwavering now. The moment you said you were scared, the moment you let me see that side of you, he continued, his voice steady, things changed. Jungkook's throat tightened. And I'm still here, Jimin added. The simplicity of that statement carried more weight than anything else. Jungkook exhaled slowly, the tension in his body loosening just slightly. You make it sound so easy, he murmured. Jimin shook his head faintly. It's not easy, he said. It's just worth it. The words lingered. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, from somewhere behind them, a voice broke through again. 10 minutes are up, we're resetting. Reality came rushing back in. Jungkook stiffened, the fragile moment slipping through his fingers as quickly as it had come. He glanced toward the set, where everything was already being prepared again. Lights adjusted, cameras repositioned, people moving like nothing had happened. Like everything that had just unfolded didn't matter. Jimin noticed the shift immediately. Hey, he said softly. Jungkook looked at him. Whatever happens out there, Jimin continued, don't go back to pretending. Jungkook hesitated. Then, slowly, he nodded. I'll try. It wasn't a promise, but it was something. As they moved back toward the set, side by side, the weight of everything unsaid followed them, lingering in the air like a quiet storm waiting to break. And for the first time, neither of them was sure what would happen when it finally did. Places everyone, and this time stick to the script. The director's voice echoed sharply across the set, snapping everything back into rigid order. Lights blazed to life again, too bright, too artificial, casting long shadows that felt almost accusing. The cameras were already rolling before Jungkook and Jimin reached their marks. Jungkook stopped under the spotlight. For a split second, he closed his eyes. The heat of the lights pressed against his skin, the faint hum of equipment buzzing in his ears. Somewhere behind the cameras, whispers still lingered, low, curious, invasive. He could feel it, the shift in the room. Something had changed and everyone knew it. Jungkook, the director called. Focus. His eyes opened instantly. Cold, controlled, perfect. Ready, he said. Jimin watched him from across the stage, something unsettled twisting in his chest. That shift, it was too fast, too clean. Like everything that had just happened had been locked away behind a door Jungkook refused to open again. Action. The scene began. Jungkook stepped forward, his movements precise, his expression carefully constructed. Every word he spoke matched the script exactly, his voice steady, flawless. Too flawless. Jimin felt it immediately. The emptiness. You're leaving. Jungkook's scripted line came out smooth, practiced, almost detached. Jimin stared at him for a second too long before responding. That's what the plan was, he said, but his voice carried something real beneath it, something unscripted. Jungkook's gaze flickered, just for a moment. Then it was gone. Plans change, Jungkook replied, sticking to the lines. Jimin took a step closer, his heart pounding louder than it should have. Not without a reason. The air shifted. That line wasn't in the script. A ripple moved through the crew, subtle but undeniable. Jungkook's jaw tightened. Stick to the script, the director muttered from behind the monitor, but he didn't yell cut. Not yet. Jungkook inhaled slowly, trying to regain control. Some things don't need explaining, he said, forcing the next line out. Jimin shook his head, his eyes locked onto Jungkook's. That's not true, he said, his voice firmer now. Not when it matters. Silence. A dangerous, fragile silence. Jungkook's pulse spiked. This wasn't the scene anymore. This wasn't acting. "Jimin," he warned under his breath. But Jimin didn't stop. "You said you'd try," he pressed, his voice low but cutting. "So try." The word hit harder than expected. Try. Jungkook's control slipped, just slightly. "You think this is the time," he snapped, the line completely abandoned now. The director straightened behind the monitor. "Wait." But still, he didn't call cut. Because no one could look away. Jimin stepped closer, his voice rising with the intensity building between them. "There's never going to be a right time," he said. "There's always going to be cameras, people watching, something at stake. So when exactly were you planning to stop hiding?" "I'm not hiding," Jungkook shot back immediately. "Then what do you call this?" Jimin challenged, gesturing toward him, toward the distance Jungkook had rebuilt in seconds. Jungkook's chest rose and fell unevenly. "I'm doing my job." "No," Jimin said sharply. "You're running." The word landed like a blow. Jungkook's eyes darkened instantly. "You don't get to decide that." "I don't have to decide it," Jimin fired back. "You're showing it." The tension snapped. "Cut!" the director finally yelled, his voice breaking through the storm. But it was too late. Because neither of them stopped. "Why are you doing this?" Jungkook demanded, his voice raw again, stripped of all control. "Why are you pushing this now?" "Because you're about to disappear again," Jimin shouted back, his composure completely gone now. "And I'm tired of pretending I don't see it." The room erupted into chaos, staff rushing forward, voices overlapping, someone trying to step between them. "Back off," Jungkook snapped, his voice sharp enough to make people hesitate. Jimin didn't move. Neither did Jungkook. They stood there, facing each other, everything laid bare in a way that was impossible to ignore. "You think I don't see it," Jimin continued, his voice shaking now, but he didn't stop. "The way you shut down, the way you push everything away the moment it gets real." "Because it's not just about me," Jungkook cut in, louder than before. "How many times do I have to say that?" "Then say what it is asterisk about," Jimin demanded. Jungkook froze. The question hung there, heavier than anything else that had been said. "Say it." Jimin's eyes didn't waver. "Say it out loud," he pressed, his voice dropping, more dangerous now. "Or stop pretending there's something you're protecting." A flicker of panic crossed Jungkook's face. Just for a second. But Jimin saw it. "So their asterisk is asterisk something," he said, quieter now, but somehow even more intense. "What is it?" Jungkook's hands clenched at his sides. His thoughts raced, his chest tightening as every possible consequence crashed into him all at once. The cameras. The staff. The rumors. The weight of everything they couldn't take back. "Don't," he said, his voice low, almost a warning. But Jimin stepped closer. "Tell me the truth." The world seemed to narrow to just the two of them. Jungkook looked at him, really looked at him, and something inside him broke. "You," he said. The word slipped out before he could stop it. Silence. Total, absolute silence. Jimin blinked, caught off guard. "What?" Jungkook's breathing became uneven again, his control completely gone now. "It's you," he repeated, his voice shaking. "It's always been you." The room felt like it tilted. No one moved. No one spoke. Jimin's heart pounded so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. "Jungkook." "I was scared," Jungkook continued, the words spilling out now, unstoppable. "Not of them," he gestured vaguely toward the cameras, the people, "but of this, of what it means, of what happens if it's real and I can't take it back." Jimin's breath caught. "You said you didn't want to lose control," he said quietly. Jungkook let out a broken laugh. "I already did." The vulnerability in his voice was undeniable, raw in a way that made the entire room feel like it was intruding on something deeply personal. Jimin stepped closer again, slower this time, more careful. "And now?" he asked. Jungkook swallowed hard, his eyes searching Jimin's face like he was looking for something solid to hold on to. I don't know, he admitted. The honesty hit harder than anything else. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Jimin did something no one expected. He reached out, not hesitating this time. His hand closed around Jungkook's wrist, firm, grounding, real. Then stop trying to control it, Jimin said softly. Jungkook's breath hitched. Just don't run, Jimin added. The room held its breath again. Because this time, there was no anger left. No shouting. Just something fragile and terrifying and real, unfolding in front of everyone. And Jungkook didn't pull away. Turn those cameras off, now. The command didn't come from the director. It came from Jungkook. His voice cut through the frozen air, low and sharp, carrying a weight that made even the most seasoned staff hesitate. For a moment, no one moved. The red recording lights blinked steadily, stubborn, like silent witnesses refusing to look away. Jungkook's gaze snapped toward them, darker now, something fierce rising beneath the vulnerability he had just exposed. I said turn them off. The authority in his tone broke the paralysis. One by one, cameras powered down. The room dimmed, not in light but in presence. The hum of production softened into something uncertain, something cautious. But it was too late. Everyone had already seen. Jimin's hand was still wrapped around Jungkook's wrist. Neither of them had moved. Neither of them had let go. Jungkook, Jimin said quietly, his voice careful now, as if even a single wrong word could shatter what remained between them. Jungkook didn't look at him. His focus was still on the staff, on the aftermath, on the reality crashing in around them. His chest rose and fell sharply, his thoughts racing faster than he could contain. Everyone out, Jungkook added, more controlled this time but no less firm. We're done for today. That's not your call, the director protested, stepping forward again, frustration edging into his voice. We have a schedule, contracts. I don't care, Jungkook cut in instantly. The room went still again. The director blinked, caught off guard. What do you mean you don't care? Jungkook finally turned to face him. And whatever the director expected to see, it wasn't this. There was no hesitation left in Jungkook's expression. No uncertainty. Just something unyielding, something that refused to be pushed any further. I mean, Jungkook said slowly, each word deliberate, that whatever this is, he gestured vaguely between himself and Jimin, it's not something you get to package and sell. A murmur rippled through the remaining staff. The director scoffed, though it sounded less confident than before. You think that's what we're doing? I know that's what happens, Jungkook replied, his voice steady, but the tension beneath it unmistakable. Everything gets turned into content. Every moment becomes something for people to consume. Jimin's grip tightened slightly around his wrist, not to restrain him, but to ground him. Jungkook didn't pull away. And you signed up for that, the director shot back. Both of you did, this isn't new. No, Jungkook agreed, but this is. The weight of his words settled heavily in the room. The director looked between them, something shifting behind his eyes, calculation, realization, something else entirely. So what? He challenged. You want special treatment now, because things got personal. Jungkook's jaw tightened. I want boundaries. A beat of silence. Then, too late for that, someone muttered from the side. Jungkook's head snapped toward the voice. A staff member stood there, hesitant but clearly nervous, holding a phone again. There's already clips going around, he admitted. Someone must have uploaded it before we shut everything down. The words hit like a collision. Jimin's hand tensed. Jungkook went completely still. What? His voice dropped, dangerously quiet. The staff member swallowed. It's spreading fast. The room erupted again, voices overlapping, panic threading through the chaos. Take it down. Contact legal. Who uploaded it? But none of it seemed to reach Jungkook. Because he was already somewhere else. You said it wouldn't stay private, Jimin said softly. his voice cutting through the noise just enough to reach him. Jungkook let out a hollow laugh, shaking his head. I didn't think it would happen this fast. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Jungkook pulled his wrist free, not harshly, but enough to create space. Jimin felt it immediately. That distance again. Jungkook. I need air, Jungkook muttered, already turning away. Running again, Jimin asked, not loudly, but enough. Jungkook stopped. The words landed, exactly where they were meant to. Slowly, he turned back. His expression was conflicted, tension pulling at every line of his face. You think that's what this is? He asked, his voice strained. You think I'm just trying to get away from you? I think you're trying to get away from what this means, Jimin replied. Jungkook let out a sharp breath. And what does it mean, Jimin? He challenged, stepping closer again, frustration rising. Say it, since you seem so sure. Jimin held his gaze. For a moment, it looked like he might hesitate. He didn't. It means you care more than you want to admit, he said, and it scares you. Jungkook's expression flickered. Don't act like you're not scared too, he shot back immediately. Jimin didn't deny it. I am, he said simply. That honesty threw Jungkook off more than any argument could have. I'm scared of what happens if we ignore this, Jimin continued, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in it. And I'm scared of what happens if we don't. The tension shifted again, less explosive, more fragile, but no less intense. Jungkook stared at him, searching for something in his expression. Then why are you pushing so hard? He asked, quieter now. Because you won't, Jimin answered. Silence. The noise of the room faded again, leaving just the two of them standing in the middle of everything that had just fallen apart. Jungkook ran a hand through his hair, his frustration bleeding into something deeper. You think I don't want to face it? He asked. You think I haven't thought about it? Jimin didn't respond. Because he knew the answer. I have, Jungkook went on, his voice tightening. Every possible outcome, every way this could go wrong. And, Jimin pressed. Jungkook laughed again, but it was softer this time, almost bitter. And none of them end well. Jimin took a step closer. Not everything has to be a disaster, he said. Jungkook shook his head. That's easy to say until it actually is. Then let it be real first, Jimin countered, before you decide how it ends. The words lingered. Jungkook's defenses wavered again, uncertainty creeping back in. Before he could respond, the same staff member rushed back toward them, breathless this time. It's worse, he said. Jungkook's stomach dropped. What now? The staff member hesitated, glancing between them. People are already speculating, he said carefully. About you too, about what that moment meant. Jimin's expression hardened slightly. Jungkook let out a slow, controlled breath, but his hands trembled faintly at his sides. Of course they are, he muttered. It's everywhere, the staff member added, and it's not slowing down. Silence fell again. Heavy, inevitable. Jungkook closed his eyes for a brief moment, as if bracing himself. Then he looked at Jimin. This time, there was no anger. No defensiveness. Just something raw, uncertain, but steady enough to hold. This is it, Jungkook said quietly. Jimin didn't look away. I know. Jungkook swallowed hard. If we take another step forward, there's no going back. Jimin's grip on his own emotions tightened, but his voice didn't waver. Then don't go back. The world around them felt like it was collapsing into noise, speculation, consequences waiting to happen. But right there, in the center of it, everything came down to a single choice. And for the first time, Jungkook didn't look like he wanted to run. The door slammed shut behind them. The noise from the outside world, voices, footsteps, the constant buzz of speculation, was cut off instantly, replaced by a suffocating silence that pressed in from all sides. The dressing room felt smaller than it should have, the air heavier, charged with everything they had dragged in with them. Jungkook stood with his back against the door, his hand still gripping the handle as if he needed to make sure it stayed closed. His breathing was uneven again, not as explosive as before, but tighter, controlled in a way that felt fragile. Jimin didn't move from where he stood in the center of the room. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then, "This is exactly what I didn't want." Jungkook's voice broke the silence, low and strained. Jimin exhaled slowly, his eyes never leaving him. "What part?" he asked. "The truth coming out or the fact that you can't hide from it anymore?" Jungkook's jaw tightened. "Don't twist it." "I'm not," Jimin replied, his tone calm but unyielding. "I'm asking you to be honest." Jungkook pushed himself off the door, packing once across the room before stopping again. His movements were restless, sharp, like he was trying to outrun his own thoughts. "You think I'm not being honest?" he shot back. "I think you're still holding back," Jimin said. That hit. Jungkook turned sharply, frustration flashing across his face. "What do you want from me?" he demanded. "I already said it, He stopped himself, his voice catching. "I already crossed that line." "And then you tried to pull back," Jimin said immediately. "Because I had to," Jungkook snapped. "Why?" The question came fast, cutting, leaving no room to dodge. Jungkook hesitated. That hesitation was all the answer Jimin needed. "Because you're scared," Jimin said again, softer now but no less direct. Jungkook let out a sharp breath, running his hands through his hair. "Of course I'm scared," he admitted, his voice rising. "Everything is falling apart out there and you're standing here asking me to just what, accept it." "I'm asking you not to deny it," Jimin corrected. "There's a difference," Jungkook shot back. "Not anymore," Jimin said. The tension spiked again, filling every inch of the room. Jungkook stared at him, his chest rising and falling rapidly. "You don't understand what this could do," he said, his voice dropping, heavier now. "Not just to us, but to everything." Jimin took a step closer. "Then explain it to me," he said. Jungkook laughed bitterly. "You want a list?" he asked. "Fine, careers, reputations. The way people look at us, everything changes. Nothing stays the same after this." Jimin didn't look away. "And you think pretending will keep it the same?" Jungkook's voice faltered for a second. "It would have been easier." "For who?" Jimin pressed. "For everyone," Jungkook answered quickly. Jimin's expression tightened. "Not for me." The words landed harder than anything else. Jungkook blinked, caught off guard. "You think this is easier for me?" Jimin continued, his voice steady but carrying a quiet intensity. "Watching you struggle, knowing what you're feeling and pretending like it's nothing." Jungkook looked away, tension pulling at his features. "I didn't ask you to do that." "No," Jimin said. "You just made it the only option." Silence fell again, heavier this time. Jungkook's defenses cracked just slightly. "I thought I was protecting you," he admitted, quieter now. Jimin shook his head. "From what?" "From this," Jungkook said, gesturing vaguely toward the door, toward everything happening outside. "From the consequences." Jimin stepped closer again, his voice dropping. "You don't get to decide that for me." Jungkook met his gaze again, something conflicted flickering in his eyes. "I wasn't deciding for you," he argued. "I was trying to handle it before it got this far." "And how was that going?" Jimin challenged. Jungkook didn't answer. Because they both knew. Jimin exhaled slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing just slightly. "You can't control everything," he said, "no matter how hard you try." Jungkook let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "Yeah," he muttered. "I think I figured that out." Another pause. But this one felt different. Less like a standoff. More like something shifting. Jimin's voice softened, but there was still something firm beneath it. "So what now?" he asked. Jungkook hesitated again. His mind raced through every possible outcome, every risk, every consequence that waited for them on the other side of that door. Then he looked at Jimin. Really looked at him. And something in his expression changed. I don't want to lie about it, he said slowly. Jimin's breath caught, just slightly. But I don't know how to face it either, Jungkook added, his voice tightening again. Not like this, not with everyone watching. Jimin nodded faintly, understanding flickering in his eyes. Then we don't do it for them, he said. Jungkook frowned slightly. What do you mean? I mean, Jimin stepped closer, closing the last bit of distance between them. We figure it out here first, just us. The simplicity of it made something in Jungkook's chest tighten. No cameras, Jimin continued. No expectations, just the truth. Jungkook swallowed hard. And what if the truth isn't enough? He asked quietly. Jimin held his gaze, unwavering. Then at least it's real. The words settled between them, heavy but grounding. For a moment, Jungkook didn't move. Didn't speak. Then, what if I mess it up? He asked. Jimin didn't hesitate. Then we deal with it. Jungkook let out a shaky breath, the tension in his body finally starting to loosen, piece by piece. You make it sound so simple, he murmured. It's not, Jimin admitted, but it's better than running. Jungkook huffed a quiet laugh, shaking his head. You really don't give me an easy way out, do you? Jimin's lips curved faintly, though his eyes remained serious. No. Silence settled again, but this time it wasn't suffocating. It was steady. Jungkook looked at him, something softer, something more certain beginning to take shape beneath all the fear. Okay, he said finally. Jimin blinked. Okay. Jungkook nodded once, slower this time. Okay, he repeated. The word felt different. Not forced. Not uncertain. A decision. Jimin's shoulders relaxed just slightly, relief flickering across his expression. But before either of them could say anything else, a loud knock slammed against the door. Both of them froze. Jungkook, Jimin, we need to talk now. The voice on the other side was urgent. And it wasn't just the staff this time. Jungkook's expression darkened again, tension snapping back into place. Jimin glanced at him, his voice low. Whatever it is, we handle it together. Jungkook hesitated for only a second. Then he nodded. Together. He reached for the door handle again, his grip tightening as reality came crashing back in, louder than ever. And this time, there was no way to shut it out. The door opened, and the silence outside was louder than anything inside. Every head turned. Managers, stylists, staff, faces tense, eyes sharp, all of them waiting. The air felt heavier than before, charged with something no one was saying out loud but everyone understood. Jungkook stepped out first. Jimin followed. Neither of them spoke. Finally, one of the managers said, his voice tight with restrained urgency. We need to move, now. Jungkook's gaze flicked across the room, reading the tension instantly. What happened? The manager didn't answer right away. That hesitation said enough. Jimin felt it too. Just say it, he said, his tone calm but firm. The manager exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. It's everywhere, he said. Clips, edits, slowed down audio, people are analyzing every second of what just happened. Jungkook's jaw clenched. And it's not just speculation anymore, another voice added from behind. They're drawing conclusions. A phone was held up in front of them. Jungkook didn't want to look. But he did. The screen glowed harshly in the dim light, displaying a paused video. Him standing too close to Jimin, his expression unguarded, his lips forming words that had never been meant for the world. It's always been you. The caption beneath it twisted the moment into something louder, something undeniable. Jungkook's stomach dropped. Jimin watched him carefully, nodding every shift, every flicker of emotion Jungkook tried to suppress. How bad? Jimin asked quietly. The manager let out a humorless laugh, bad enough that it's trending globally. Silence. Heavy, suffocating. Jungkook looked away from the screen, his mind racing, his thoughts colliding with every possible consequence. This is exactly what I was talking about, he muttered, his voice tight. And this is exactly why we need to respond, the manager shot back immediately. Before it gets worse. Jungkook's head snapped up. Respond how? Another phone appeared. A statement draft. Carefully worded, neutral, safe. Misunderstanding, emotional moment, taken out of context. Jungkook stared at it. The words blurred. This shuts it down, the manager said. Fast, clean, no room for misinterpretation. Jimin stepped closer, reading over Jungkook's shoulder. His expression changed instantly. You want us to lie? He asked. It's not lying, the manager replied quickly. It's managing the situation. That's the same thing, Jimin said, sharper now. Jungkook didn't speak. His silence stretched too long. Jimin noticed. You're actually considering it, he asked, his voice dropping. Jungkook's chest tightened. I'm considering what happens if we don't. That's not an answer, Jimin said. It is when everything is already out of control, Jungkook snapped, his frustration breaking through again. You think I don't see what this could turn into? And you think denying it will fix that? Jimin challenged. It will contain it, Jungkook shot back. Jimin's expression hardened. At what cost? The question hit deeper than Jungkook expected. Jungkook looked away again, tension pulling at every line of his face. At the cost of not making things worse, he said, quieter now. Jimin stepped in front of him, forcing him to look up. No, he said, at the cost of us. The words landed hard. The room went still again. Jungkook's breath caught. You said you didn't want to lie, Jimin continued, his voice steady but filled with something raw beneath it. So don't. Jungkook swallowed, his resolve faltering. It's not that simple, he said. Then stop pretending it is, Jimin replied. The tension surged again, sharper, more personal. Do you think I want to do this? Jungkook asked suddenly, his voice rising. Do you think I want to stand here and choose between? He stopped himself, his frustration boiling over. Between what's real and what's safe. Jimin didn't hesitate. Yes, he said, because that's exactly what this is. Jungkook laughed bitterly, shaking his head. You make it sound like I'm choosing the wrong thing. I think you already know what the right thing is, Jimin said quietly. Jungkook froze. The truth in those words hit too close. Jungkook, the manager cut in, urgency creeping back into his voice. We don't have time for this. Every second we wait, the narrative gets out of control. Jungkook's hands clenched at his sides. The pressure closed in from all directions. The past. The present. The consequences waiting just ahead. Say something, the manager pushed. We need a decision. Jungkook looked at the statement again. Then at Jimin. Jimin didn't look away. Didn't soften. Didn't give him an easy way out. Whatever you choose, Jimin said quietly, just don't pretend it doesn't matter. Jungkook's chest tightened painfully. Because it did matter. More than anything. The room felt like it was closing in, every expectation, every consequence pressing down on him at once. And for the first time, he didn't look at the managers. He didn't look at the phones. He didn't look at the chaos surrounding them. He only looked at Jimin. And something shifted. Slowly, Jungkook reached out. The paper in his hand crumpled slightly as his grip tightened. Then, he let it go. The statement fell to the floor. A sharp inhale rippled through the room. The manager's expression darkened instantly. What are you doing? Jungkook didn't answer him. His voice, when it came, was quieter than before. But stronger. I'm not saying that, he said. Silence. Heavy, absolute. You're making a mistake, the manager warned. Jungkook shook his head slowly. No, he said. I've been making mistakes. His gaze shifted back to Jimin. This isn't one of them. Jimin's breath caught. The weight of those words settled between them, steady, unshakable. The room erupted again. Voices, arguments, panic rising all at once. But none of it reached them. Because in that moment, for the first time since everything began, Jungkook wasn't running anymore. And he wasn't alone. Then what asterisk are you saying? The question came like a strike, sharp and immediate. The room fell silent again, but this time it wasn't confusion, it was anticipation. Every eye locked onto Jungkook, waiting, pressing, demanding something he hadn't fully formed yet. Jungkook didn't answer right away. His chest rose slowly, deliberately, as if he were trying to steady something fragile inside him. The weight of everything, the noise online, the pressure in the room, the expectations closing in, felt suffocating. But Jimin was still there, right in front of him, unmoving, unwavering. And somehow, that was the only thing keeping everything from collapsing. I'm saying, Jungkook started, his voice low, but it faltered. The words didn't come easily. Not because they weren't there, but because once they were spoken, there would be no taking them back. Hurry up, one of the managers snapped under his breath. We don't have time for hesitation. Jungkook's jaw tightened. Time. That was all anyone kept talking about. Like this was something that could be rushed. Something that could be packaged neatly into a decision and moved on from. It was. Stop rushing him, Jimin said suddenly, his voice cutting through the tension. The manager turned sharply. Excuse me. I said stop, Jimin repeated, calmer now but no less firm. This isn't something you get to pressure out of him. This isn't just about him, the manager shot back. This affects everyone. Jimin didn't back down. I know exactly what it affects. Then act like it, the manager snapped. The tension spiked again, sharp enough to make the air feel thin. Jungkook closed his eyes for a brief second. Just one. Then he opened them again. And something in his expression had changed. The hesitation was still there. The fear hadn't disappeared. But there was something else now. Something steadier. I'm saying, he tried again, his voice clearer this time, though still quiet. I'm done pretending this is nothing. The words landed. Not explosive. Not loud. But heavier than anything else he could have said. The reaction was immediate. You can't be serious, the manager said, disbelief flashing across his face. Jungkook didn't look at him. His focus stayed on Jimin. I don't know what this is yet, Jungkook continued, his voice tightening slightly. I don't have a perfect explanation. I don't have something clean or easy to say. Then don't say anything at all, the manager cut in sharply. Jungkook's gaze snapped toward him. And let everyone else decide what it means, he asked, something dangerous creeping back into his tone. Let them twist it into whatever they want. That's exactly what they're already doing, the manager shot back. Then maybe the problem isn't what I say, Jungkook replied, his voice rising slightly. Maybe the problem is that you think I need to fix it for them. The room stilled again. That wasn't the response anyone expected. Jimin watched him carefully, something like quiet disbelief flickering across his face, not because he doubted him, but because he could see the shift happening in real time. Jungkook wasn't retreating. He wasn't calculating every word to stay safe. He was choosing. You're letting emotion take over, the manager said, his voice colder now, more controlled. That's exactly how things spiral. Jungkook let out a short breath, something almost like a laugh, but there was no humor in it. Maybe, he said. The admission threw the room off balance. But at least it's real, he added. Jimin's breath caught again. The manager shook his head, frustration building. Real doesn't protect you, he said. Real doesn't stop backlash, rumors, damage. Neither does lying, Jungkook cut in. Silence. Sharp, immediate. Jungkook's voice dropped again, quieter but more grounded. You said it yourself, he continued. It's already out there. People are already talking. So what exactly am I protecting by pretending it didn't happen? The manager didn't answer. Because there wasn't a clean answer. Jungkook looked back at Jimin. For a moment, everything else disappeared again. I meant what I said, Jungkook said quietly. Jimin didn't blink. Didn't move. But something in his expression shifted, something deeper, something that had been waiting for this. You don't have to say it again, Jimin replied softly. I do, Jungkook said. The room felt like it tilted again. Jungkook took a step closer. Not for the cameras. Not for anyone else. Just for him. I meant it, he repeated, his voice steadier now, though still carrying that fragile edge. And I'm not going to act like I didn't just because it's complicated. Jimin's throat tightened. Jungkook, he started, but his voice faltered. Jungkook shook his head slightly. I don't have everything figured out, he admitted. I don't know what this becomes or how it ends or what it costs. The honesty hit harder than anything else. But I know it's not nothing, Jungkook added. The words settled into the space between them, solid and undeniable. Jimin let out a slow breath, his composure finally cracking just slightly under the weight of it. That's all I needed you to say, he murmured. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The chaos around them faded again, replaced by something quieter, something more grounded. Then, you're making this public whether you say it or not, the manager interrupted, his voice sharper now, almost desperate. So if you're not going to deny it, then at least control it. Give a statement. Clarify, shape the narrative. Jungkook hesitated. That part still mattered. Jimin noticed immediately. You don't have to decide everything right now, he said quietly. Jungkook exhaled slowly, tension flickering across his face again. But I have to decide something. Jimin nodded faintly. Then make it honest, he said. Jungkook looked at him. Then at the managers. Then back again. The weight of the decision hadn't disappeared. But it felt different now. Less like something closing in. More like something he could finally face. Fine, Jungkook said. The room stilled. I'll say something, he continued, but not what you wrote. The manager frowned. Then what? Jungkook paused. Thinking. Choosing. Carefully this time, but not out of fear. Out of intention. I'll tell the truth, he said. A beat of silence. Then. And what truth is that? The manager pressed. Jungkook didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Jimin one more time. And whatever he saw there, it was enough. That it was real, Jungkook said finally. The words echoed in the room, simple but impossible to ignore. No denial. No clean explanation. No safe distance. Just truth. And for the first time, it felt like something they could stand on. You're going live in 5 minutes. The words dropped like a countdown to something irreversible. The room shifted instantly, urgency replacing hesitation. Staff moved faster now, voices lower but sharper, the tension no longer hidden. It was organized, controlled, weaponized. Jungkook stood in front of the monitor, staring at his own reflection. It didn't feel like him. The lights were too bright again, too clean, washing over every detail, every flicker of emotion he couldn't fully suppress. His expression looked steady on screen, composed in a way that almost felt like a lie. But his hands betrayed him. They trembled just slightly. Jimin noticed. He stepped closer without saying anything at first, his presence quiet but grounding. Close enough that Jungkook could feel it, even without looking. You don't have to do this like they want, Jimin said softly. Jungkook let out a slow breath, his eyes still locked on the screen. I know. But he didn't step away. Jimin studied him, something unsettled creeping into his chest. Then why does it look like you're about to? Jungkook's reflection flickered, just for a second. Because if I don't say anything, he replied, his voice low, they'll say it for me. Jimin's jaw tightened slightly. And if you say the wrong thing? Jungkook finally turned to face him. His eyes were steady, but not calm. "There's no version of this where it doesn't go wrong," he said. The honesty hit hard. Jimin didn't argue, because he knew it was true. The room buzzed around them, preparations moving forward whether they were ready or not. 2 minutes, someone called out. Jungkook exhaled again, slower this time, as if trying to anchor himself before everything shifted. Jimin stepped even closer. "Then don't try to make it perfect," he said. "Just make it real." Jungkook's gaze softened for a fraction of a second. "Real got us here," he murmured. "And hiding almost destroyed it," Jimin replied. Silence. Not empty. Not fragile. Just honest. Jungkook looked at him for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them, something heavier than fear, deeper than doubt. Then he nodded. Once. 30 seconds. The countdown echoed in the room. Jungkook turned back to the monitor, his posture straightening, his expression settling, not into something artificial, but into something deliberate. This time, he wasn't hiding. He wasn't pretending. But he wasn't fully at peace either. And maybe that was the point. 10 seconds. The lights shifted slightly. The signal was about to go live. Jungkook's heartbeat pounded in his ears, loud enough to drown everything else out. He didn't look back at the managers. He didn't look at the cameras. At the last second, he looked at Jimin. Jimin didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He just held his gaze. Steady. Unwavering. Here. 3, 2, 1. The red light blinked on. Live. Jungkook inhaled. Then, "Hi." His voice came out softer than expected. But it didn't shake. Not this time. "I know a lot of you have seen the clips already," he continued, his eyes flickering briefly to the screen before settling again. "And I know there are a lot of questions." Behind the camera, the room was completely still. No one moved. No one interrupted. Jungkook swallowed, the weight of everything pressing down, but he didn't look away. "I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen," he said. A ripple moved through the staff. Jimin's chest tightened. Jungkook kept going. "What you saw wasn't scripted," he admitted. "It wasn't planned. It wasn't something we were trying to show." His voice dipped slightly, not weaker, just more honest. "It just happened." The simplicity of it made it heavier. "I said something I didn't mean to say out loud," Jungkook continued, his gaze steady but softer now. "Not because it wasn't true, but because I wasn't ready." The room held its breath. Jimin's fingers curled slightly at his side. Jungkook exhaled slowly, his composure holding, but barely. "I'm still not sure I'm ready," he admitted. The words hung there, vulnerable, unguarded. "But I don't want to lie about it either." A pause. Short, but enough to feel. Jungkook's eyes shifted, just for a second. Toward Jimin. Then back to the camera. "What I said, it matters," he said. "And I'm not going to take it back just because it's complicated." A sharp inhale echoed somewhere behind the scenes. Jimin didn't move. Didn't breathe. Jungkook's voice softened again, but the weight behind it didn't fade. "I don't have all the answers right now," he continued. "I don't know what this becomes or how it's going to be understood." His jaw tightened slightly. "But I know it's real." Silence. Absolute. Even through the screen, it felt like the world had paused. Jungkook held that moment. Didn't rush it. Didn't try to fill it. He let it exist. Then, "That's all I can say for now," he finished quietly. The red light blinked off. The broadcast ended. For a second, no one moved. No one spoke. The silence was deafening. Then the room exploded. Voices overlapped, urgent, chaotic, reacting all at once, but Jungkook didn't hear any of it. Because he was already looking at Jimin. And Jimin was already looking at him. No cameras. No audience. Just them. Jungkook let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, the tension in his body finally cracking open. "Well," he said, a faint, exhausted laugh escaping him, "that's done." Jimin didn't laugh. He stepped forward instead. Close. Closer than before. "You didn't run," Jimin said quietly. Jungkook shook his head, his expression softer now, but still heavy with everything that hadn't settled yet. "No," he said. And for the first time, it didn't feel like something he had to force. Jimin studied him for a long moment, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. Then, "Do you regret it?" he asked. The question was quiet, but it carried weight. Jungkook didn't answer immediately. He thought about it, about the consequences, the backlash waiting outside, the uncertainty still ahead. Then he looked at Jimin, and something in his expression steadied completely. "No," he said. This time, there was no hesitation at all. The silence after the broadcast didn't feel like peace. It felt like the moment after impact, when everything had already collided, but the consequences hadn't fully settled yet. Jungkook stood there, the weight of what he had just done still pulsing through him, not fatting, not softening. Around them, the room remained loud, managers arguing, phones ringing, voices layered with urgency and concern. But it all blurred into something distant. Because none of it mattered more than the person standing in front of him. Jimin. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. No cameras. No performance. No script. Just truth, raw and irreversible. "You really did it," Jimin said quietly, his voice carrying something between disbelief and admiration. Jungkook let out a slow breath, running a hand through his hair. "Yeah," he murmured, "I guess I did." There was no pride in it. No relief either. Just something steady. Real. Jimin stepped closer, his gaze searching Jungkook's face like he was trying to understand every layer of what had just happened. "You know this doesn't end here," he said. "This is just the beginning." "I know," Jungkook replied. And he did. That was the difference now. Before, the future had felt like something to avoid, something too overwhelming to face. Now, it was still uncertain, still complicated, but it didn't feel like something he had to run from anymore. "Not completely." "But I meant what I said," Jungkook added, his voice quieter now, but stronger in a way that didn't need volume. "I'm not taking it back." Jimin's expression softened, just slightly. "I know," he said. Another silence settled between them, but this one wasn't heavy. It was grounding. For the first time since everything started unraveling, the tension between them wasn't pulling them apart. It was holding them in place. Still steady, real. A phone buzzed loudly nearby, breaking the moment. Then another. And another. The outside world was catching up. "Jungkook," one of the managers called, urgency creeping back into his voice. "We need to talk strategy, now more than ever." Jungkook didn't turn. Not immediately. Jimin noticed. "You should go," Jimin said softly. Jungkook hesitated. "Not to hide," Jimin added quickly, reading the hesitation in his eyes. "Just to face what comes next." Jungkook exhaled slowly, nodding faintly. "Yeah," he said, "together." The words slipped out naturally. Not forced. Not questioned. Jimin didn't correct him. Didn't question it either. Instead, he gave a small nod, something quiet but certain. "Together." Jungkook finally turned toward the waiting voices, the expectations, the storm that was already building outside those walls. But this time, he didn't feel alone walking into it. Hours later, the world had shifted. Reactions flooded in faster than anyone could keep track of. Headlines, comments, support, backlash, everything collided into a single, overwhelming wave of noise. But somewhere within it, There was clarity. Not from the world. From them. Jungkook sat in a quieter room now, the chaos momentarily held at bay. His phone lay on the table in front of him, screen lighting up again and again with notifications he hadn't checked. He didn't need to. Not yet. The door opened softly. Jimin stepped inside. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Jungkook leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. "It's loud out there," he said. Jimin nodded, closing the door behind him. "It always is." Jungkook let out a faint, tired laugh. "Yeah." A pause. Then, "But it's quieter in here." Jimin walked closer, stopping just a few steps away. "It is." The simplicity of it made something shift again. Something calm, something real. Jungkook looked up at him, his expression softer now, stripped of the tension that had defined everything before. "I meant that too," he said. Jimin tilted his head slightly. "Which part?" Jungkook's lips curved faintly, though there was still a trace of nervousness beneath it. "All of it," he admitted, "not just what I said out there." Jimin's gaze didn't waver. "You don't have to prove it," he said. "I know," Jungkook replied. "I just don't want to leave it unsaid anymore." The words settled into the space between them, quiet but certain. Jimin stepped closer again. This time, there was no hesitation from either of them. "No more pretending," Jimin said. Jungkook shook his head. "No more pretending." The distance between them disappeared, not in a dramatic way, not in something explosive or overwhelming, but in something steady. Something chosen. Something real. And for the first time since everything began, there was no fear attached to it. Outside, the world would keep moving. Questions would come. Reactions would rise and fall. Nothing about what came next would be simple. But inside that moment, inside that quiet space they had carved out for themselves, none of that mattered more than the truth they had finally stopped running from. Jungkook let out a slow breath, the last of the tension leaving his shoulders. "We'll figure it out," he said. Jimin nodded. "Yeah," he replied, "we will." And this time, it didn't feel uncertain. It felt like a beginning.